Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we're going to have a look at Finland and discuss the prospects of both Finland and Sweden joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Is this a good idea? Is this a defensive move, or is it a offensive move by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization? And what I have pulled up is Russian force placement prior to the Ukrainian war. Obviously, a lot of these forces have since been moved and are directly engaged in the ongoing war against Ukraine as we speak. But if we look at the Russian force posture prior to the Ukrainian war, now obviously some of these units have also been withdrawn and are no longer, or at least some elements of these units are no longer near the Finnish border. But if we look at what was the Russian force posture prior to the Ukrainian invasion, you can clearly see that Russian forces were not arrayed in an offensive manner directed towards Finland. So if we start kind of south near St. Petersburg, you have the 6th Army, a very small army in terms of Russian capability. It contains 2 mechanized brigades, 1 artillery brigade, 1 missile brigade, and 1 flamethrower battalion, and that's a TOS system. But specifically, the closest thing to Helsinki was this unit right here, the 138th Mechanized Brigade. And again, some of these battalion tactical groups have been pulled out of this unit and shipped further to the south because of the ongoing war taking place in Ukraine. So you have this brigade, roughly 4,000 troops, 3 mechanized battalion, 1 tank battalion, 1 recon battalion, just a standard motorized rifle brigade for Russian forces. And then further to the north, hundreds of miles to the north, you've got another brigade, and this is the 80th Arctic Mechanized Brigade. And then further to the north, you have 2 more brigades. You have the 200th Mechanized Brigade, again, standard composition, 3 mechanized battalion and 1 tank battalion. And then you have the 61st Naval Infantry Brigade. This is one of the better units in the Russian Federation in terms of rapid deployment capability, and a little bit different construct than the motorized rifle brigades, but nonetheless a very good unit. And at the same time, you have to understand that some of these units are also designed not directed towards Finland, but the North Atlantic Treaty Organization based up here near the Norwegian border. And that's really the realistically the only units that are near the Finnish border are 2 brigades. This right here, the 80th Arctic Mechanized Brigade, and closer to Helsinki, the Finnish capital, is 1 brigade, the 138th Mechanized Brigade. So clearly, the Russians do not have or did not keep any form of standard offensive capacity near the Finnish border. Thus, there appears to be no intent on the Russians' part to launch any sort of operation into Finland. And I think obviously the Russians have had the experience in the early stages of World War II with the Finnish campaign, the Winter War, and that probably still has a very foul taste in the mouths of Russian policymakers. So the idea that we would see a Russian invasion of Finland is probably very, very remote. And the Russians would have to do a lot of things prior to launching an invasion of Finland. So I don't even think it was on the cards. So with that being said, then why is Finland wanting to gravitate and move towards NATO? And why does NATO want to take Finland into the alliance? Well, it's a very, very simple explanation. It further gives NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, more capability in terms of isolating the Russian Northern Fleet that's up here. So if you look at the main railway networks and road networks that go from St. Petersburg and kind of the western central part of Russia that extends from Moscow to St. Petersburg to the Belarusian border and in some areas east, kind of the central industrial heartland of Russia. It extending up to Murmansk and the Northern Fleet, there's just one road that runs this way, north-south. One road and one railway network that runs north-south. So if there ever was a hypothetical all-out war between the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and Russia, having Finland in NATO would give NATO the ability to look to directly cut off the main St. Petersburg to Murmansk both highway and railway network. So it is in fact not necessarily a defensive play by NATO, but more of a offensive play by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Again, the concept that Russia is going to invade Finland is incredibly remote. But placing Finland in NATO gives NATO that capability of cutting off that main infrastructure towards the Northern Fleet headquarters. And if I activate everything, we'll put naval forces, aerospace forces, air defense forces, and other types of installations. So you can see this in terms of Russia's Northern Fleet is obviously having access to that is very, very important. And if NATO were able to initiate hostilities, or if for some reason hostilities commenced, then the question is, would NATO then have some sort of capability to eventually sever the main road up towards a lot of these vital installations in the north towards Murmansk and the Kola Peninsula, and then have the ability, quite possibly, to launch operations from Norway against these forces of the Russian Federation, and thus eliminating the Russian Northern Fleet Command. So that is the concept behind getting Finland into this organization. Again, the likelihood that we would see some sort of Russian offensive against Finland, I just say is just incredibly remote, and would take an immense amount of Russian force deployments that would really be outside of the norm, and again the infrastructure to facilitate an invasion of Sweden. I'm sorry, Finland would really take some effort, and it's just something that I've talked about cost versus benefit, but the cost for Russia would be incredibly high, and at the same time, I reasonably believe that obviously even not being in NATO, if Russia were to invade Finland, in all probability, Sweden would come to the direct aid of Finland, as would some other countries. So the benefit that Finland gets from joining NATO, I don't think is that much more significant than if they had not joined NATO. So again, if Russia attacks Finland, I do believe Finland gets support. But this is not about that. This is about giving NATO that capability to launch operations against the Russian Kola Peninsula, specifically Murmansk, cut off the main railway up towards Murmansk, and then that would facilitate further operations coming out of Norway. So to say that this is a defensive play, I think is a false narrative. I think there could be some sort of another arrangement that could be made by Finland to seek a defensive alliance without fully joining NATO. And at the same time, it's hard to say if this would even happen because of what's happening right now with Turkey. The reason that Turkey is against the Finns and the Swedes joining NATO is because there are some progressive groups in Finland, in some of these Nordic countries, that directly support Kurdish separatist efforts in Turkey. And why do these groups in these Nordic countries support some of these efforts by Kurdish resistance organizations? Hard to say. It's probably the same reason now that men can give birth to children. It's just this bizarre thing that some of these progressive organizations feel that they have to do. And that's one of the things that they've done is, for some reason, they've decided to help some of these Kurdish movements in Turkey. Now, obviously, they could cut that off, and probably Turkey is trying to leverage the situation for various financial arrangements. But that's kind of what's happening right now. And to say it's a defensive move by NATO against a possible Russian invasion of Finland is just ridiculous. The Russians are not going to invade Finland. They're not positioned to do that, and especially now with what's happening in Ukraine, it's even much more remote. Even if it was a hypothetical situation in terms of a possible move on, say, Gotland Island or something like that. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous. And I'm sorry, the Gotland Islands over here. I was just looking at that helicopter base. That was one area that had been discussed in terms of possible Russian moves. But yeah, again, just don't see it happening. Don't see that. I don't think Finland really believes that they are under threat by Russian forces of an invasion of Finland. Just don't see it happening. And again, then you have to question why. Well, I think I just explained it. Have a good day, everybody.